All right, happy Monday to everyone. Let's begin today's session. Yeah, it's Monday and the week has started again after a period of rest. Right, so let's begin. Back and neck straight, gently close the eyes and start observing your breath. Just watching the natural flow of your breath as you inhale and as you exhale. Keep the body stable and mind focused on the breathing so that it can begin to relax. And when you're mentally and physically relaxed and stable, you will see that naturally your breath will become slow, long, and deep. You'll be chanting Om one time, followed by the Shanti mantra. Inhale deeply for me. Sarve Sukhino Sarve 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 Just feel the vibrations and sensations. Join both the arms together in front of the chest and rub them together. Place them on the eyes. Very slowly while blinking and looking at the palm, your eyes start coming back with a big smile. And let us begin today's class. So today our topic of discussion is going to be the last school of yoga. I hope that I am clearly audible. If it is otherwise, just let me know. Right? I think that my voice is clear, but if in case it is low or it is breaking, just unmute yourself and let me know. Right? Whenever you feel that is happening. Okay. So Rajiv, today we are discussing the last school of yoga, Rajayog. Rajiv. It is also in English, commonly referred to as the royal path. This is the highest path, one can say, or a very advanced path. Even though when you read Patanjali Yoga Sutra, you will find that practices for a beginner have been given, and then an intermediate level student, and then an advanced level student. But even a beginner of Raj Yoga is at a very advanced stage already, because they begin with yamas and niyamas for a beginner. When we discuss Ashtanga Yoga in the upcoming classes, eightfold path, right, given by Maharishi Patanjali ji, right? So, uh, it starts with yamas and niyamas, which are basically, ways in which you know, discipline the mind, and they are like, attitudes and ways of living in the society, as well as how you conduct yourself, right? So, unless and until you do not perfect yamas and niyamas, you will not be able to move to the part of asana, right? And when you begin your yoga journey, most people, want to do asanas, right? So for a Raj Yogi, already, developing the character, developing the mind, making the mind strong, making the will strong enough to follow all of those things, right? uh, the Raj Yogi needs to be on a very high level, because asana is going to come later on for the Raj Yogi. And for the Raj Yogi, the asana doesn't mean, postures of the body. It just means one posture in which they can sit and meditate, right? So asana has been described completely differently. When you come to Patanjali Yoga Sutra, it does not have the definition as in Hatha Yoga, right? So as you can already see, even a beginner, mentally has to be very strong in order to follow this path. So that is why, a person, mostly begins with karma yoga or bhakti yoga, right? And as they develop themselves in these on these paths, that is when, at a particular point of time, they reach the path of Raju. Even when you read books of Hatha Yoga, right? So Hatha Yoga is the one that you generally practice in your asana and pranayama classes, right? So even if you read books of Raj Yoga, you will see that over there, or sorry, Hatha Yoga, you will see that Hatha Yoga has been described as a, you know I can say, a pre-practice for Raj Yoga. And Hatha Yoga starts with asanas, because after a while, people were going into a lot of guilt for not being able to practice, the yamas and the yamas, right? So, but eventually along the way, Raj Yoga is bound to come. So everything that you do along the way, somewhere Raj Yoga is going to merge in your path, right? Uh, Even if you are doing karma and bhakti yoga, right? You will see that all schools of yoga, intertwine. So suppose for a, for that day we were discussing Gyan Yoga. So for a Gyan Yogi, they are constantly doing something to enhance their knowledge. They are reading books, they are attending, constant lectures by the guru. So they cannot suspend action, right? A Gyan Yogi cannot suspend action. So Karma Yoga is also part of Gyan Yoga. Then we also discussed, Shraddha that day, and where I told you that, belief. Bhakti Yoga is also a part of this. Why? Because if you do not believe in something, you will not be able to go ahead and pursue it, or it won't have that kind of impact on you, right? So, all of these parts are mixing up. Karma Yoga is there, Bhakti Yoga is there, and then one of the core practices of Gyan Yoga, meditation, was also over there. So Raj Yoga also eventually, final stage of Gyan Yoga merged into Raj Yoga, right? So that is how just the point of origination is different, right? Depending on what you believe in or which part of yourself you strongly connect with. But eventually, one is bound to come on the path of Raj Yoga in everything you do. Everything, no matter which practice you are doing, Shat Karma, Asana, Pranayama, you are preparing the body and the mind for the practice of Raj Yoga. Eventually, Raj Yoga is going to merge into your practice, right? So, Raj literally means, royal or king. In India, we had, kings, and we used to call them Raja, right? So, Raj uh, literally means royal or king, right? So, as you can see, it is a royal path, right? So it is a very high level path, and not depending on your status or where you were born or how much wealth you have. It's actually dependent on how much sadhana you have done, how much practice you have done along the way. Because you cannot force Raju, like you cannot force Gyan Yoga, Bhakti Yoga, or Karma Yoga. You cannot force Raj Yoga as well. It is an advanced stage, and if it doesn't resonate with you naturally, then you can choose to do something else, right? But eventually, you are going towards it, and it is quite a royal path, right? Because this is the path. These are the practices that are given over here. These are the ones that will get you to the ultimate goal, right? So, Maharishi Patanjali, right? He is the person who, as soon as the talk of yoga or the talk of Raj Yoga comes up, Maharishi Patanjali is the one who is, generally named, who his text is generally quoted, and you will find even in Bhagavad Gita. The path of Raj Yoga has been mentioned, right? And it has been referred to in the 6th chapter by the name of Dhyana. 𝐻�YANA, Dhyana. 6th chapter of Bhagavad Gita. Right? Quite similar to Patanjali ji's Raj Yoga, Dhyana Yoga is also quite similar. When you read the chapter, you will gain a more detailed understanding, right? So, what is this Raj Yoga, right? Now I told you it is a royal path. This is where it is given, but what is it actually? Like a Gyan Yogi, they believe in the cognitive power of the mind, and they believe, with cognition, they can navigate through the mind, concentrate the mind, and then eventually go step into the practice where they are meditating. The Raj Yogi, believes that the mind, it is like a source of light. Okay. So, sometimes you see that there are very rays of light are going and they are very scattered. So when they are scattered, you can overall see what is there, but you cannot clearly see one particular thing, right? And when you are on the path of yoga, you are particularly trying to see certain things, right? So in that way, is our mind. When we have multiple thoughts, when we have no control over the mind, it's going to go in 10 different directions, and you won't be able to see any one particular thing clearly, right? So when you have to make a decision and the mind is running a lot, are you able to take that decision? You are not, right? Because the mind is too unstable, right? So the Raj Yogi, or the path of Raj Yoga, sees the mind as this tool where if you concentrate if you give direction to that light, when we use a very small torch, it's going to throw light on something, and it is going to clearly highlight that thing, whatever you are throwing the light on. So something like that is the state of the mind. If you are able to control and concentrate it, where you direct it to know whatever you want to know, if you are able to first concentrate it and then direct it towards that thing, you will gain proper understanding of the thing that you are looking for, right? So it's like, so you have multiple thoughts, and then you are just giving it one object, like you do in your meditation classes also. You give one object, right, to the mind. It still runs away, but it remembers somewhere to come back to the object. So when it stays continuously with the object, right, and all the effort is suspended, that state is called meditation, right? So when it is totally, when the now the light is completely focused on what you want to look at, that is when you gain a deeper understanding of what you are trying to look at, right? So when you can concentrate the thoughts in such a way that it stays with the object, that is when you gain a clear understanding of the object. Another very important thing when it comes to Raj Yoga is whatever you are trying to see, the path of Raj Yoga acknowledges that it cannot be seen through the eyes, right? That is why you require the mind. Now, the mind can do two things, right? One is it can connect with the senses, right? And it can run away where the senses are at, right? So it will be able to see. It will be able to see something, but it's not the thing you are looking for, right? And it is going to be able to see mostly things which are present around you. It's not going to give you the knowledge of something which you are actually trying to understand. You are trying to understand something beyond uh, you know everything that you perceive every day. So again, you withdraw the senses, right? You allow the mind to cut off from the senses, so that whatever is external to it does not become a distraction, right? And you go inwards and you try to observe something which cannot be observed just like that, just with open eyes. At least for a beginner, you cannot get to know understand that thing and gain a good understanding of what you are trying to look at. So when you disconnect from the senses, go within and practice concentration, pratyahar and then dharana, then you are actually able to throw a light on your real existence, right? So real existence meaning, the true nature of who you are. You are actually trying to understand that thing through things that are external to you. What job you have, or if you are a good sister, a good brother, a good wife, a good husband, a good child to your parents. We are always looking outward to understand who we are, right? But the answer doesn't lie over there. The answer lies within us. So when you go into practices like concentration and meditation, that is when you gain a better understanding of who you are, instead of everything around you which defines who you are, right? So that is the basic concept of Raju. When you read the sixth chapter of Bhagavad Gita, once again, Krishna ji has shown a lot of emphasis on, the path of Dhyan Yoga, and he says that unless and until one is established in, um, some other yoga, right? For example, karma yoga, right? So they won't be able to exactly do Dhyan yoga properly. Why? Because the mind is constantly engaged with the fruits of the results of the action, right? So it's constantly engaged with the results that you're going to get from the action. So when the mind has 10 directions to run in, then there is no way in which you can, go deeper into the practice of dhyana, right? So first, it is very important to purify the mind through other schools of yoga, right? And then step into dhyana, so that the mind is already, there is a lot of cleansing that has been done, so that you can directly sit in meditation. So a lot of, he talks of cleansing in that form, that you practice other schools of yoga, and in that way you will be able to purify the mind. And he emphasizes on the a fact that meditation is not anything separate. He says that, like eating, sleeping, all of these activities that we do in the day, meditation is also one of the activities, and it is actually a way of living, right? So if you are present where you are, both from your mind and your body, like both things are present where you are living your life in that moment, right? So it is actually a way of living, rather than allowing the mind to run away in the past, or into the future, or in fantasy. You are choosing for the mind to stay where you are, right? So when we come to Rajayoga, as I told you, Maharishi Patanjali ji is a very important name. So we are going to, now start with the topic of, we will go deeply into what has been written in the text, even though we had a very short class on the overall, structure of the text. Now we are going to go deeper into what he has, written in the text, right? So he begins the text with a very popular sutra, in which he says, Atha Yoga Anushasana, right? So you don't need to write it down. I'm just going to explain it a little bit so that you get an idea of, when he started the text, what he was trying to emphasize on. So when he said this sutra, he said that now I'm going to give the instructions on yoga, right? Now I'm going to tell you about the discipline of yoga. And by using the word now, he meant that no matter what you have been doing so far, it doesn't matter. But now that you have picked up the text, now that you are here listening to the text, now is the time where you create that line, right? That there is a past, right, where you did not know about it, and it doesn't matter how you were at that point of time. But now you are going to go into the discipline of yoga, right? And then, the famous yoga chitta vritti nirodha, we have discussed this. So then he defines yoga, and then he, tells us that, what happens when you practice this, when you reach this state of yoga, and what happens if you don't reach this state of yoga. So if you reach that state of mind, then you will be established within yourself. You will be stable within the real identity of who you are. But if you don't, then the mind will move along with the vritti. So vrittis, VRITTIS, right? And then, he, because he used the term vritti, he begins to define what vritti is, right? So earlier we had discussed what vritti is. Vritti is a fluctuation or a mental modification in the mind, right? But he has given 5 vrittis overall, and today we are going to discuss those in depth, the 5 vrittis, right? VRITTIS, the 5 vrittis. So now first one is Praman. PRAMANA. praman or right knowledge? Right. So first one is your right knowledge. So he said that, when uh, he described everything as being a mental modification. No matter what little thing you give to the mind, there is a fluctuation that is caused in the mind or the chitta. More specifically, I would say chitta. Overall term that I used was mind. So in the chitta, whenever something, even little thing happens, there is a fluctuation or there is a disturbance that is caused, and that is called a vritti. So when you attain the right knowledge, again there is a fluctuation that happens in the mind, right? So when we get the right knowledge, then also there is some modification that takes place in the chitta, right? So he defined right knowledge uh, in his sutra, and he said that any three of these, like I'm going to write three terms down now, right? So he said that any three of these, if you experience that, then it is right knowledge, and apart from that, anything else will fall under some other category. All right. So when we go when we discuss the other vrittis, then we will discuss, depending on which category it goes into. But first one, praman. So any thing that falls into either of the three categories is going to be right knowledge for you, right? Pratyaksh. Praty. Aksh. Pratyaksh. Direct sense experience. Right. So this is one of the ways in which the knowledge is right. So suppose right now there is a table in front of you, right? So the table is there, and I can actually see it. There is this table. It is solid. It is brown in color. It has this quality, this design. So there is an object, and your senses can directly perceive that thing, so it becomes the right knowledge. So suppose someone comes in and says that this is a blue table, but I know at that point of time that that person is not telling me the truth, because I can see that there is a table in front of me which is brown in color. Another example of right knowledge is that suppose there is a flower, right? You walk outside, there is a flower, and you see it, it's yellow in color, and there is a particular scent that it has. So you go ahead, you smell that thing. So the object is real, right? It is actually over there, and your senses are helping you to see that object, to perceive that object, more specifically to perceive that object, right? So eyes are seeing it. I told you that you can even smell the flowers, so you get that scent, so you associate it with the design, the shape, the qualities of that flower, all of these things. So your senses are experiencing something, and you can perceive that directly, right? So it will fall under the category of right knowledge, right? When you have your direct experience. So direct experience forms a very big portion of our own reality. How when we actually see something and it is there, so the object always is going to be real over here, right? There is no doubt that the object is not there, or the object is false, or it is not there. Yeah, both these things, right? So the object is real, and your senses are helping you to perceive that thing. So it comes under the first category, where you know that the knowledge is correct, right? Then second thing, Anuman. Sorry, ANU. ANUMANT. Right. So second one is Anuman, where you are inferring now. So suppose uh, all right, yeah. So it's something like there is some smoke that is coming up from the hills, right? And you directly are able to perceive that that smoke means that there is fire over there, right? Another example of Anuman where you infer something. So you do not directly know that that thing is happening. You cannot directly gain access to the thing that is happening. But you are at least able to, or on the basis of very strong logic. All right. So when we come to inference, there is a very strong logic that is placed behind it, right? So that this thing is going to lead to this thing. So suppose there are a lot of clouds in the sky, right? So I have good reason to believe that it is going to rain, right? I cannot predict when it is going to rain, but if the sky is full of clouds, then I have good reason to believe that it is going to rain, and it eventually would. So I am inferring by seeing the clouds, by waking up in the morning, coming out and seeing that there is no sun, and the entire place, it is almost ready that it is going to rain. I am inferring it is not raining, but I can infer this thing that it is going to rain, right? Because of whatever I see, all the conditions are set up so that it is going to rain, right? So same thing that when you have very strong logic. So now what will happen with the clouds, right? If it is so cloudy, right, then it is going to rain. Maybe because of wind, the clouds will move somewhere else and it might rain somewhere else, right? I'm not saying that it would rain over here only. Sometimes it does happen that the weather is set up in such a way that we know it's going to rain, but it doesn't rain in your area, right? It is raining in some other area, right? So because of some or the other factors, it is possible that it won't rain exactly where you are, but you have the right logic to perceive that it is going to rain, the way in which the weather is set up. So this is inference, right? Inference requires a very strong logic once again, right? So like rain, the water has evaporated and formed a cloud uh, up in the sky. So it is bound to, that water is bound to come down, right? So there is a very strong science behind it, that this is the cycle, this is the cycle that goes on, and of course this is going to happen. So that is when you can use inference as a way of perceiving right knowledge, because sometimes when something is going to happen, you do not like always get to experience that thing, right? But you can infer from a set of check marks, right, that that thing is going to happen. Like when you walk on the path of yoga. So let's take the uh, example of asanas only. So every day you wake up and you want to do a full split, right? Want to achieve that. So every day you wake up and you do that thing. Now you cannot see the full split happening, right? Just right now. But you already infer that if you keep doing this practice, you are one day bound to achieve that posture where you will be able to do a full split, right? So now you are somewhere taking an inference based on your practice, based on your everyday dedication. Or if somebody sees you practicing every day, you can just go and you will see a lot of people when they see you practice yoga, they're going to say that she is going to be able to do it, right? So they are inferring on the basis of the way in which they see you practice. So you also will be able to infer eventually that you have strong reason to believe that you are going to achieve it, because you are putting in the work every day, right? So that is when this inference thing is going to give you the right knowledge. Now the third thing is your agam, AGAM, or testimony. Right. So this gets very, very deep. Why? Because first one was your direct experience, right? So you have all the necessary resources to believe that something is true and it is happening, right? Second one, also there is some way of understanding that something is bound to happen, right? A little bit of your knowledge, of your understanding is engaged over here when you even come to Anuman, right? But when it comes to Agam, you are actually trying to understand something which which you haven't experienced, right? So when you walk on the path of yoga and especially meditation, when you come to the less physical practices and more internal practices like concentration and meditation, you will begin to see that there are certain things that you are told of in the class, that this is bound to come, but you cannot, you are unable to experience it. So then you take your guru at their word, right? So suppose you start with your meditation. This is quite common, right? We start with the meditation and then we sit in the meditation, and after a few seconds we start experiencing a lot of pain, right? So now meditation class is going on, cannot disturb the teacher, so you just somehow sit through it or you change your posture, right? But at the end of the class a doubt comes up, like ma'am, it was paining too much, and you ask your teacher, right, that it was hurting too much, and what can I do to avert or manage this pain during meditation? And your teacher says, don't worry, it is going to go away, right? If you keep practicing, it is bound to go away. If you keep practicing, it is bound to go away, right? And at this point of time, you believe your teacher, right? You take your teacher at their word, right? And then you keep practicing, and then you eventually reach a stage where it doesn't hurt so much now, right? Or it has stopped hurting altogether, right? So your teacher explained to you, this is a trick of the mind. It is going to give you a lot of thoughts. It's going to give you a lot of pain. You're going to feel that itch. You're going to feel this, that. And even though you were feeling that thing, you were somewhere trusting her word that eventually, as you keep practicing, so you were taking her testimony, right? That eventually, as you keep practicing, you are bound to come out of this. Like it's just a reaction of the mind, right? So that thing is the testimony where you first thing, whenever it comes to testimony, you need to have a guru, right? Because you are consulting someone. So guru, or maybe even text, right? Any scripture, but you need to believe. First thing is you need to believe in that guru or that scripture. If you do not have a sense of surrender, if you do not have shraddha towards the guru or the text, then you will not be able to gain much out of the testimony, even if it is true, because you do not believe in it, because you are not inclined towards it. You are not going to gain a lot out of the testimony, right? Another thing, there are certain things you cannot experience very immediately, but they act as a good goal setting, right? So especially when in meditation, you struggle so much with the body pain, with the, tendency of the mind to run away, with your, you know, when you fall asleep during meditation, at that point of time, you need somebody's, experience, you need somebody's knowledge on this path to direct you how to come out of these things, to direct you what is going to happen with these things. So taking the guru at their word or the scripture at its word is the part where you do this agam thing, right? So you have to have a lot of trust and surrender towards the guru, and you have to look for a right guru also, right? So not everybody will be able to guide you properly, right? So look for a guru when you come to the testimony part, because there are 10 things that a person can say about the same thing, right? But you need to uh, find the person who is telling you the correct one. Out of those 9 will be wrong, one will be correct for you. So guru always knows the capability of the student and gives the practices accordingly, gives the directions accordingly. So finding a good guru is really important when you come to Agam. Another very important thing is that the guru should be able to pass down the knowledge as it is, right? So the guru should not change the knowledge, right? So depending on your level, of course, they are going to give you varying degrees of the technique, right? But it doesn't mean that somebody is trademarking something and adding their own style and then guiding you on your path. So this is a very tricky slope. It's a very slippery slope, right? You well eventually, as you go deeper into meditation, you will be able to find the right guru or the right direction for yourself, right? But be very careful, because even if if you add one drop of black paint in white paint, it does not remain white anymore, right? So in this case, you have to be very careful, because even if the guru is passing down most of the knowledge correctly, and there is only one variation that they add on their own, one personal touch where they think this can be done, then it's going to contaminate the entire knowledge, right? Because that one thing will actually become a very big factor in determining where your journey goes, right? So testimony, be careful. Other two, you will still be able to uh, still be able to get a little bit of idea where the things are going, right? But even Anuman, keep your logic very correct. So reading the scriptures or reading Bhagavad Gita, all of these things are actually going to give you strong logic, right? It's going to trigger your cognitive mind. So it's going to give you strong knowledge, so you can always fall back on these scriptures or texts which are going to help you with this Anuman as well. How to infer and correctly infer, right? There is a difference. You can infer, but you might not be able to infer correctly. So in that case also, reading texts is quite helpful, right? Any doubts so far in any of this? No doubts? Still absorbing?
For testimony, yeah, what is like, is it like a normal person, like, wanting to get a guru, or just like, somebody's practicing it and stuck in between, so need to find a guru?
See, it's about the guidance that you need, right? When it comes to testimony, it's mostly about the guidance. You can also rely on scriptures, right? If you feel that you are able to understand certain things, right? Well, so you can even fall back on scriptures. You just need to have complete surrender towards it, right? If I constantly, you will find some people who read spiritual texts so that they can argue against them, right? We will find certain people who do that also. So at that point of time, what is your you need to have faith, basically, that whatever is being said, because the path is long, right? So you are bound to face a lot of ups and downs on your path of yoga also, be it asanas, pranayamas. You will see that sometimes the progress isn't going as per expectation, even though you are putting that kind of effort. So it's not always about you said struggling, right? So it's not always about just the struggle. Sometimes we put in everything that we can, we give our best, but certain other factors, they stop us from going ahead. So that is when, the guru or the scriptures can actually help you with these things. Just give me a minute. Yeah, so sorry. Yeah.
And also it's like, is it testimony also, like, when you keep practicing it, you will get to know like some things about like future, or like sometimes you'll get like idea, oh, this is going to happen. That is that kind of thing as well.
See, testimony is more about, you taking someone at their word, be it any scripture or any book. Eventually, of course, certain things are bound to come on your way. It doesn't like you are talking about seeing the future or getting to know something about the future. So all of these things don't get stuck in these things, right? So there are when you walk on the path, like I want to go from here to say Mumbai or to Delhi, right? So I take a path, right, to go from here till my destination, and along the way, I will find a lot of restaurants, right? I will find a lot of cars, a lot of buses that are going on the way. So all of these things that you are talking about, these are bound to come on the way, right? But depending on your level, there are certain check marks, or there are certain ways in which you can understand that you are walking on the right path, right? So that thing which you haven't experienced yet, but you are bound to fall, like that thing is bound to come on your way if you go correctly on the path. Those things are referred to when we talk of testimony.
Okay.
Any other doubts? All right. Okay. So I think we can end today's session then. And tomorrow we are going to talk about the other vrittis, right? So you have 4 other vrittis, and we are going to discuss those in detail tomorrow, right? Because today, if I start, I will not be able to, even begin to explain. Time is almost up, right? So let's end today's session. Yeah, back and neck straight. Gently close your eyes. Start observing your breath. We'll chant Om one time, followed by three shantis. Inhale for Om. Shanti. Just feel the vibrations. Join both the palms together in front of the chest. Let's just bow down and begin the day with a sense of gratitude for everything we have. Rub both the palms together. Place them on the eyes. Very slowly, while blinking and looking at the palms, open up your eyes, come back to the smile. I'll see you all for your pranayam class in the evening or in the afternoon. Are there any doubts? All great. So, bye bye everyone. I will see you very soon.
See you tonight.